There's a principle in quantum physics that destroyed classical physics forever, and it's destroying your business right now. It's called the measurement problem. And here's what makes it terrifying. The act of measuring something changes what you're measuring. In 1927, Werner Heisenberg proved that you cannot observe a particle without fundamentally altering its behavior. The electron doesn't just exist in one place, it exists in multiple states simultaneously until you look at it. And if you're checking your revenue dashboard 5 times a day, monitoring your competitors' social media every morning, or refreshing your email waiting for that client response, you're not managing your business. You're collapsing its potential. Let me show you what I mean. You launch a marketing campaign. 30 minutes later, you're checking the analytics. Zero conversions. So what do? You pause the campaign, you change the targeting, you rewrite the ad copy. By noon, you've made 6 adjustments. By end of day, you have no idea what's actually working because you've measured and changed everything before it had time to exist in its natural state. This is the measurement problem in business. In quantum mechanics, when you measure a particle's position, you destroy information about its momentum. When you measure its momentum, you destroy information about its position. You cannot have both. The act of measurement forces the system to choose. In business, when you measure too frequently, you force decisions too early. You collapse potential strategies before they can develop. You turn possibilities into premature certainties, and certainty in a complex system is often wrong. Here's what most business advice gets backwards. They tell you can't manage what you don't measure, and they're right to a point, but they miss the quantum reality. Measurement itself is an intervention. Every time you check a metric, you're not just observing, you're interacting with the system. You're sending a signal to your team, to your market, to yourself. This number matters more than everything else. Your team knows when you're watching. They feel the measurement, and they change their behavior, not necessarily in ways that improve the business, but in ways that improve the metric you're measuring. This is Goodhart's law in action. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. You start tracking customer support response time. Your team starts closing tickets faster. Sounds good, right? Except now they're rushing responses, providing incomplete solutions, just to hit the metric. The measurement changed the system. Or you measure sales calls per day. Your sales team makes more calls, but the quality drops. They're optimizing for quantity because that's what you're measuring. The measurement changed the system. And here's where it gets really dangerous. You're not just changing your team's behavior, you're changing your own perception of reality. Imagine you're tracking website traffic. Every day you log in, you see the numbers. Some days are up, some days are down, and your brain starts creating narratives. Traffic was down on Tuesday because of the holiday. Traffic spiked on Thursday because of that social media post. But here's the quantum reality. Those narratives might be completely wrong. Correlation isn't causation. And when you measure too frequently, you see patterns that don't exist. You create meaning from noise. This is called apophenia, the tendency to perceive connections between unrelated things. And the more you measure, the more false patterns you see. The more false patterns you see, the more bad decisions you make. Let me give you a real example from the UK. I know a business owner who checks his revenue dashboard 12 times a day. 12. He can tell you exactly what happened at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday 3 weeks ago. He's got spreadsheets, he's got charts, he's got theories, and his business is stagnant. Why? Because he's so busy measuring that he's not building. He's so focused on what happened yesterday that he's not creating what happens tomorrow. He's collapsed every possibility into a single, obsessive measurement cycle. Compare that to another entrepreneur I know who checks revenue once per month. Once. He spends the rest of his time talking to customers, testing new ideas, building relationships, observing market patterns. His business is growing 25% year over year. Not because he's ignoring data, because he's choosing the right measurement frequency. Here's the quantum principle. Particles exist in superposition, multiple states at once, until you measure them. The moment you measure, the superposition collapses into a single state. Your business is the same. Right now, your marketing campaign exists in multiple potential states. It might succeed, it might fail, it might succeed with one audience and fail with another. It might work better in 3 weeks than it works today. But the moment you measure it after 30 minutes, you collapse all those possibilities. You make a decision based on incomplete information, and that decision changes everything that comes after. This is why successful investors don't check stock prices daily. They know that daily fluctuations are noise. They're measuring at the wrong frequency. They choose monthly, quarterly, or yearly measurement intervals because that's the time frame where meaningful patterns emerge. This is why great coaches don't evaluate players based on one game. They observe over seasons. They know that a single measurement point tells you almost nothing. And this is why the best entrepreneurs don't obsess over daily metrics. They understand measurement frequency. There's a concept in physics called the Nyquist theorem. It says that to accurately capture a signal, you must sample it at least twice as fast as its highest frequency. In plain English, you need to match your measurement frequency to the system's natural rhythm. If you're measuring too fast, you capture noise. If you're measuring too slow, you miss important changes. Most businesses measure too fast. You're checking daily metrics on quarterly strategies. You're monitoring hourly fluctuations on annual goals. You're refreshing dashboards on 5-minute intervals for decisions that won't matter for 6 months. And every time you measure, you're not just observing, you're intervening, you're changing the system, you're collapsing possibility. So what's the alternative? Observation without measurement. There's a difference. Measurement is quantitative, intrusive, and change-inducing. Observation is qualitative, passive, and pattern-seeking. When you measure, you ask, what is the exact number right now? When you observe, you ask, what patterns am I noticing over time? Measurement demands precision. Observation tolerates ambiguity. And in complex systems, which all businesses are, ambiguity is often closer to truth than precision. Think about it. You can measure customer satisfaction with a survey score, but is that precision meaningful? Or would you learn more by observing how customers talk about your product when they think you're not listening? You can measure employee productivity with time tracking software, but does that precision help? Or would you learn more by observing which employees others naturally turn to for help? Measurement gives you numbers, observation gives you understanding, and understanding beats numbers when you're navigating complexity. Here's what I've learned living in Cambodia for the past 6 months. I observe constantly, I measure rarely. I observe which businesses locals actually use versus which ones tourists photograph. I observe how negotiation patterns differ between morning and afternoon. I observe which infrastructure projects finish on time and which ones stall. I'm not measuring these things precisely. I'm not tracking them in spreadsheets. I'm noticing patterns. I'm staying open to multiple interpretations. I'm letting the environment exist in its natural state. And because I'm observing rather than measuring, I spot opportunities I would have missed. You spot opportunities you would have missed because you were staring at a dashboard. I see this constantly here in Cambodia, and it's why outsiders often spot opportunities locals miss. The locals are too close. They're measuring too frequently. They see every daily fluctuation. Outsiders arrive, observe the macro pattern, and act on what actually matters. They're not ignoring data. They're choosing the right measurement frequency for the decision they're making. So what does this mean practically? First, audit your measurement behavior. What are you checking multiple times per day? Why? Is that frequency helping you make better decisions or just making you anxious? Second, create measurement rules. I check revenue once per week, Friday morning. I review marketing metrics monthly, first Monday. I assess strategic direction quarterly, not because these numbers don't matter, because they matter too much to measure incorrectly. Third, replace measurement with observation. Instead of checking if your ad campaign worked, talk to 5 customers about how they found you. Instead of refreshing your social media analytics, notice which topics generate actual conversations. Instead of monitoring competitor pricing, understand what your customers actually value. Observation doesn't collapse the wave function the way measurement does. Observation maintains possibility, because here's the truth, the measurement problem reveals. Your business doesn't exist in one fixed state. It exists in multiple potential states, and every time you measure, you're forcing it to choose one. The quantum physics principle is this: observation affects reality. The business principle is this: excessive measurement kills potential. The psychological principle is this: certainty is often the enemy of truth. So measure what matters. Measure when it matters. And for everything else, trust the process, observe the patterns, and let your business exist in its natural state of possibility. because the moment you stop forcing premature certainty, you create space for emergence. And emergence is where the real opportunities hide. You decide.